Is it possible to restore a rare endangered species using cloning? What do you get when you cross a dog and a human? And what does a prehistoric hybrid of a shark and a stingray look like? Watch the episode to the end and you'll find it out. Today, you'll see the craziest hybrid animals ever. Let's go. The fact that men descended from ape seems to many people to be a natural fact. And indeed, there's a lot of evidence and theories that only add confidence about this version. Scientists do not stand aside and in time adapt to everything new, coming up with innovative methods to fight incurable diseases. It'd be cool to be able to just replace an organ inside a person with a perfectly healthy and untouched one, wouldn't it? But where do you get so many donors? It turns out that there's a good option in the form of crossbreeding a human with a monkey for quite understandable and logical reasons. All this happens within the framework of ethical norms and legal principles. Here's a statement from a leading physician. As important as these results are to science, what is equally important is how we conducted this work, paying the utmost attention to ethical considerations and coordinating closely with regulatory agencies. The scientists placed human stem cells into macaque embryos in lab cups and were able to grow chimeric embryos for 20 days. Sheep with human cells. To be honest, I thought that the human fantasy should end with monkeys, but this is not the case. For the first time, American researchers have managed to create chimeric embryos based on sheep embryos containing human cells. In the long term, this project will work in the same direction to grow human organs suitable for transplantation. Right now, 1 out of 10,000 cells in the resulting embryo is that of a human. In the future, the scientists plan to increase the number of human cells in the chimeric embryos to 1%. Once the scientists reach this value, people can move on to longer experiments and eventually achieve the desired result. The researchers are convinced that this method is much better than an option featuring pigs, for example, because fewer embryos are required to effectively transfer embryos into the body of a sheep. About 50 embryos were transferred into the body of one pig, with 4 were sufficient for the sheep experiment. Despite the seemingly peaceful mission of these experiments, the scientists are receiving a lot of criticism from a variety of people. People are worried about the effectiveness of the method. They're sure that part of the cells of people can penetrate into the brain of the animal and disrupt its life, which is categorically contrary to ethical norms. The authors of the new work say that this is unlikely. Very few human cells get into embryos. The changes can always be tracked and the experience can be stopped. How do you feel about such experiments? Do you consider them necessary for the progress of mankind? Or is it outrage and evil? Share your thoughts in the comments. Dogman. And the last human experience involves the lives of dogs. But why should they have been touched, you may ask? As soon as these images were leaked on the internet, they were met with a bunch of negative comments. Not only will dogs not help people grow organs in any way, but the experiment also went so far that the test subject grew up and gave birth to human puppies. Well, don't worry, it's much simpler and better than you realize. In front of us is not the result of a monstrous human experiment. It's an ordinary exhibit from the exhibition of a Japanese sculptor. You have to admit that it looks very beautiful and plausible, right? Okay, let's now move on to hybrid animals not directly related to humans. And first up, we have glowing sheep. This is another victory for genetic engineering. Scientists from Uruguay have succeeded in breeding a unique breed of sheep which has acquired the ability to glow in the dark. Of course, they did it not for fun. It's believed that this effect will significantly reduce the likelihood of loss of livestock on the farm, as well as increase fertility. The secret of this trick is quite simple. The whole trick is the introduction of jellyfish genes. As a result, the cells began to produce a special fluorescent protein that causes glow in the dark. At the same time, in the daytime, the luminescent sheep do not differ from their common congeners. Interestingly, this amazing discovery wasn't planned. People simply tested the effectiveness and efficiency of their equipment, introducing into the animal cells something that should not have affected them in any way. And in the end, the result was this. Turns out that the ingenious is always simple indeed.
Easy peasy lemon squeezy.
Shark and stingray. Sometimes people don't even need to take part in the creation of something creative in order for something unusual and interesting to be born. In this case, it was a hybrid of a shark and a stingray, which appeared in prehistoric times. Modern creatures are similar in the presence of a cartilaginous skeleton, which creates a problem. Unlike bones, cartilage doesn't turn into fossils, but decomposes completely. Because of this, the search for the ancient ancestors of these two creatures is extremely difficult. But then, unexpectedly, a miracle happened.
Wow.
People dug up the remains of the ancient hybrid. From the shark, it borrowed an oblong and torpedo-shaped body with a fin in the form of a sail, as well as a characteristic structure of the mouth. Apparently, it took the teeth from the stingray. They're smaller, spike-shaped, and rounded. According to scientists, the creature lived about 93 million years ago, and at the time of death was still very young. But even then, its length exceeded 5 feet, and the span of the fins was almost 6.5 feet. One can only guess about the body structure of an adult creature, but something tells me it would be of colossal size. Beefalo. Fortunately, hybrid animals are not a relic of the past. It's thanks to them that creatures with a predominance of positive qualities are born, which are actively used in experiments, in houseworking, or in farming. The main hero of the latter, by the way, is the beefalo. This is a hybrid of a domestic bull and a female American bison. Initially, the hybrid was created with a very noble goal, to restore the population exterminated in the wild. But soon, smart people realized that the hybrid brings great benefit not only to nature, but also to their wallet. After all, these animals are both large and docile. Their milk is fatter than that of a cow, and the meat is healthier and tastier than ordinary beef. In addition, beefalo better endure bad weather, unlike cows and bulls. This is where the breeding of these bison cows began to go in full blast. But then the animal rights activists showed up, and whether it was their cunning move or they actually considered breeding these creatures a bad decision, but they said that no matter how the hybrid animals are similar to bison outwardly, they're not able to fully replace the species. These animals are less hardy and more voracious. They deplete the ecosystems they inhabit more quickly. In addition, along with cow genes, some diseases of cows also got into the herds of beefalo. Welcome back. The American polecat, or the black-footed ferret, is a small predator that was completely exterminated in Canada by 1937 and has been listed as an endangered species in the Red List of North America since 1967. These creatures were constantly poisoned or captured, but scientists still managed to save about 1,000 representatives of the species. They thought for a long time how to save these creatures and finally found a solution to the problem. The people used cloning. They managed to grow a ferret from the biomaterials of an animal that died about 35 years ago. Even though, in the end, everything went well, there were many problems. For example, it was very difficult to find a surrogate mother. Almost all candidates were rejected. Scientists did not have a ready egg cell, so they had to introduce genes into an ordinary embryo. The most interesting and unexpected thing was that the born female, named Elizabeth Ann, turned out to be wild, despite the fact that her surrogate mother had long been domesticated. Robo Stingray. Who would have thought that creating robots could help people solve the problem of heart disease? Usually, project authors copy the features of living creatures' body structure, their ways of movement, and create some kind of machine. But these experiments from Harvard went much further. Their miniature stingray has a little from a rat, a little from a mammary gland implant, and some gold. The resulting skeleton was made of the precious metal. For the muscles, the scientists borrowed 200,000 cardiomyocytes from rats. These are heart muscle cells, which they had to modify so that they reacted to light and not to signals from the nervous system. All this allows the stingray's fins to respond to light and lower, while the flexible skeleton brings the fins back into place. On top, the whole mechanism is covered with a thin layer of transparent polymer, or skin. The length of such a biorobot is only 0.6 inches, and it weighs 0.3 ounces. Heart cells have been genetically modified to contract when exposed to light. Thus, to make the stingray move, different parts of it must be periodically illuminated, and the speed of movement is controlled by light pulses delivered to the heart muscles. All this was done for a reason. Such experiments help scientists better understand the work of the human heart muscle. The ultimate goal of the scientific group is to create a full-fledged heart for people with severe diseases. And now, from fantastic creatures, we'll move on to familiar earthy reptiles. Next, you'll see unusual encounters with slithering giants. Anaconda. This snake is one of the largest of all living on our planet. I think everyone knows this fact. However, in our view, since few people go into details, it has a length of, well, 10 feet or so, but definitely no more. Not so. The biggest anaconda they found was over 36 feet long and weighed almost 440 pounds. However, this one was never preserved. At the moment, the longest is considered to be a 29.5-foot anaconda, kept at the New York Zoological Society. It can be identified not only by its huge size, but also by its distinctive grayish-green coloration with 2 rows of round and oblong brown spots on its back and yellow spots and black edging on its sides. This is an almost perfect camouflage for the creature, accustomed to waiting for its prey sitting in water, covered with leaves and algae. Yes, as you understand, these snakes live in not the easiest environment, and that's why it's difficult for scientists to say for sure about their population and condition in general. By the way, these creatures spend almost all their time underwater. It's not for nothing that since ancient times they were called common water boas. If you think that you just need to hunt them in the period where there's drought outside, snakes tell you the following. When the reservoir, where the snakes live, dries up, it simply burrows in the mud and waits for the moment when precipitation falls. These creatures are so accustomed to their environment that they even remove their scales without leaving the house. They rub themselves against the bottom and feel satisfied. Just like other boa constrictors, the anaconda is not venomous. It neutralizes its prey with close hugs and subsequent squeezing, from which it's almost impossible for an animal to free itself. And a person still has, though slight, but a chance to catch the tail of the snake and not let it completely wrap around themselves. That's what trainers do in a circus, though this trick will hardly help with an anaconda since it's incomparably bigger than any circus boa constrictor. By the way, the female anacondas are much bigger and stronger than males. And now, if you add up all the factors, you can come up with the following scene. A huge female anaconda slithers around the world, catches some animals, and because of its size, squeezes them so hard that it literally breaks their bones and bursts their organs. Yeah, sounds like some description of a new horror movie to me. In fact, anacondas never intentionally try to break bones or do anything like that, although it is possible. They only want to cut off the prey's airway, which means that their prey almost always dies of suffocation. Taipan. While there is a lot of content about the anaconda on the internet, or in the movie industry, the taipan is somehow overlooked. I think it's because people just don't want to attract the attention of the most venomous snake in the world. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. A little clarification is required here. I'm not talking about an ordinary taipan, but the inland taipan. The teeth of this creature are about half an inch long. The venom glands contain up to 400 milligrams of venom. Just one dose would be enough to kill up to 100 adults. But don't worry, aggression and desire to kill everyone around comes to the snake only if someone or something disturbs it. When the inland taipan sees danger, it twists its body and begins to vibrate it, lifts its head and shakes it, and then, in a split second, rushes at its opponent and bites it several times. The venom, which enters the prey's body in no time at all, disrupts blood clotting and paralyzes respiratory muscles as well as muscle contractions. Statistically, 1 out of every 2 people bitten by the snake is sent to Kingdom Come. You'll be surprised, but people with an unusual outlook on life catch this creature. Of course, they do it not to keep the snake in their homes or just catch it on camera. The goals are much more global. Primary goal is to catch the snake and send it to a research center where scientists can thoroughly study the venom and figure out how to fight it or use it for good. And yes, it was possible to find the inland taipan, of course, except that it took a couple or 3 sleepless days and nights. The fact is that this inland taipan is a real master of camouflage. Its golden hue, combined with the sand of deserts where it lives, makes the snake a needle in a haystack. Moreover, the whole snake is a complete mystery. People know that predators produce venom to hunt, and since there are almost no other creatures in the area where the inland taipan lives, the reason for the production of the world's most toxic venom remains unknown to this day. Well, snakes are unpredictable creatures, to put it mildly. If only there were fewer of these dangerous species on our planet, just like the snakes I'm going to talk about next. You've hardly ever seen them on the internet, but they're definitely worth your attention. Let's take a look at them. California red-sided garter snake. This is the name of this beautiful snake. You must admit that its coloring is simply great. Moreover, it belongs to the colubrids family, which means that it's not dangerous for people. However, that was not the only creeping creature with a unique coloration. At least there's the rainbow snake in nature as well. I think you got its essence from the name. As soon as light hits this beauty, it becomes a real traffic light, a mirror of the rainbow, and begins to glow in different colors. Surprisingly, the creature's native color is black. Monocled cobra. Remember this name. If someone tells you that there is one in the area, run. Run as fast as you can, because this cobra is insanely dangerous, having a lot of venom. I can't believe that someone would think of buying this snake for more than $50,000. Apparently, it's some kind of mutant with 2 heads, while at the same time being a representative of one of the rarest snake species. Nature's done its best. By the way, I wonder how this snake feeds at all. Which head does it use? Maybe 2 at once? All in all, write your guesses in the comments. Get the real combo. It's a 2-headed albino snake. Yeah, I certainly wasn't expecting that. What's next? A snake with smiley faces instead of spots on its body? I was kidding? What's a snake with smiley faces on its body doing here anyway? You'd be surprised. But the snake is not a product of editing or Photoshop. This creature's very real. Imagine how much the snake could cost in the circle of rare snake lovers. Unique snake. And here's another white snake. Only this time it has a body the color of snow and an ordinary head. That means it's not an albino. But why does it have that color? Well, this is the result of an unusual snake selection. The price for such rare individuals starts at $7,000. Hairy bush viper. Some people breed creeping creatures themselves and make a lot of money, while others simply explore the wild nature and find unique snakes already created by nature. To such snakes, I would gladly take this hairy bush viper. First of all, it stands out against the general background with its unusual skin. It's in the form of small leaves and resembles the feathers of a bird. Such reptiles inhabit the territory of several African countries: Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, and the DRC. They live on large trees. Snakes can be of green to red colors. Horned viper. And this unusual viper species, with amazing horns on its head, can be found exclusively in Africa and on the Arabian Peninsula. They're solitary individuals that never show a desire to gather in groups. The only exception is the mating season. By the way, do you know how these creatures intimidate their enemies? In case of any danger, they curl up into a semicircle and rub one side against the other. During such snake movements, the scales make an extremely unpleasant sound. That's what makes enemies turn and run. It's cool, of course, to scare others with strange noises, to get into dangerous stances, or to make lunges, biting enemies and injecting them with super venom. But it's much more effective and fun to shoot venom. I wish snakes could do that. But wait a minute, it seems that nature's heard me and created these beauties. The spitting cobra really shoots venom into the eyes of its enemy. The toxin reaching the opponent causes severe pain, as well as temporary or permanent blindness. That's brutal, but very effective and spectacular. For me, it's much better to avoid these dangerous spitting creatures, and if we're to encounter snakes, then only such as the blue racer. These captivating creatures are common in North America. The snakes are distinguished by their incredible speed and lack of venom glands. They hunt small rodents and birds, but they carefully avoid humans. Just what you need. What do you think happens when a python meets a leopard? Let's find it out. Cat versus snake. The leopard is an exquisite, dangerous, and at the same time cautious cat which is ready to mess with anyone, even if it comes across a huge python. In most cases, the big cat will try to catch its luck by the tail. 4 paws with razor-sharp claws, powerful jaws with 2-inch-long fangs, agility and speed combined with innate feline reflexes. This is a powerful set. The snake is clearly gonna have a hard time. As for the python, it can't boast clawed paws, but it always has sharp teeth bent inward. Once the python grabs its prey, the prey can hardly escape. Don't forget that the python is able to squeeze the prey with its muscular body, and it's very difficult to get away from its iron hugs. In short, anyone can win. It's just a matter of the first attack and of the fact which animal has the best position. In this video, the leopard was in that position. It grabbed the python and tried to pull it aside, but now 1 minute later the snake escaped from the cat's grip and fled to the water, where the big cat could not catch up with it. I don't know about you, but I didn't expect at all that the snake would escape from the leopard grip so easily. penguin and beluga whale. The next encounter took place in captivity, but it did not become any less natural because of that. The video shows the oceanarium's favorite animal, a baby penguin, being led to the glass enclosing it from the whales. In this way, people wanted to surprise the animal and show it something new. And it worked! The little baby definitely had an extraordinary experience from such an encounter. You just look at how big these beluga whales, these toothy whales, are compared to the penguin. In nature, such an encounter would be impossible because beluga whales and penguins live on different poles. But in the oceanarium, it not only happened, but everyone enjoyed it as well. Bear and fawn. I don't know how it's possible, but the encountering between a little bear and a fawn didn't happen somewhere in the wild, not even on the people's lawns, but in a very ordinary house. These two beautiful animals met right in the living room. They were both still too young, so everything looked incredibly gentle and cute. The fawn, surprisingly, was not afraid at all, even though there was one of the most formidable predators in front of it, even if it was still young. But the bear was much more wary. At first, it wanted to impress the little deer. It came closer to it and stood on its two paws. But as soon as the bear noticed that its friend was not frightened a bit, it began to back away. The bear hid behind the ladder and generally didn't want to get involved in anything incomprehensible anymore. How'd you like the meeting of these two creatures? Which one seemed cuter? Write in the comments. Okay, I'm gonna need your help this time. I know the first stare-down opponent, it's a common seal. But the second, what is it? It's either a baby lizard or some kind of crocodile. But no, it doesn't look like a crocodile. And generally, it's definitely some kind of strange lizard, which is confident in itself. I can't explain its neutral stare any other way. The seal twists and turns, constantly jerking its head, trying to provoke its opponent into some kind of emotion. But the lizard doesn't care at all. An unusual friendship. Who would have thought that in captivity, lions, the kings of the jungle, would become completely different, sensual and open animals ready to accept absolutely anyone into their family, even these cute and small dogs. The wild cat at the zoo in the video made friends with two tiny dogs that had accidentally wandered into its enclosure. At first, people were really scared because if the lion was not in the mood, it could destroy the dogs easily. Everything was okay. Luckily, the king of the jungle befriended the dogs and, contrary to people's expectations, defended them. Now they're a real family, where the two younger ones constantly need care and the older one doesn't mind showing it at all. Bella and Bubbles. Bella and Bubbles, that's the names of the two main characters in the following story. Back in the 1980s, a female elephant named Bubbles was taken to a safari park in the United States. There, she was very welcome and warmly received. The positive atmosphere played a key role in her settling into her new territory, as a result of which Bubbles quickly became like one of the family here and won the love of the public. In this, she was also helped by a kind and easy disposition. About 30 years later, renovations began in the park, which was already her home. People wanted to restore the previously broken pool. When the work was coming to an end, one man left so tired that somehow he forgot his faithful dog named Bella at the zoo. But don't worry, the black Labrador is fine. No one hurt her. On the contrary, the staff was amazed when they noticed a touching friendship was born before their eyes. The elephant and the dog loved each other so much. Bella and Bubbles rested, played, and bathed together. The elephant threw a ball to the dog, and the dog jumped into the water right off her huge friend's back. Polly the helper. And this friendship's unusual, to put it mildly. A deer named Nellie was abandoned by her birth mother for some unknown reason and left to her own fate. Fortunately, this was quickly noticed by a girl who works with animals. She took Nellie with her and tried to help her. It was noticeable that the female deer had little strength. It did not want to play with her peers at all. In general, she required a special approach. And then the girl thought of the following. She put Nellie in a large cage with a rabbit named Polly. This baby had a similar experience of acquaintance for the first time, as well as the deer, but that didn't prevent them from becoming friends and becoming close. Things went so far that the two were inseparable. All they did was lie in a corner somewhere, cuddling. Thanks to this psychological trick, Nellie was able to forget her past problems, eat normally, and become a healthy adult deer. Now her owner has placed her separately from Polly so that she would not become too habituated with being the rabbit all the time. This time, her friends were her congeners. As sad as it sounds, these are forced measures. After all, these babies belong in the wild, and it was important for them to be prepared for that. Bear and tiger. A bear versus a tiger. You see this headline a lot because these incredibly strong animals are born to compete and find out which one of them is tougher. But the two in this story don't care about sorting things out. The bear and his best friend, the tiger, are in front of you, and they don't need anyone else. The predators are constantly spending time together, playing something, cuddling, and making sure no one hurts their friend. In short, they behave in a way that's simply unbelievable, and it all started completely by accident. When one of the park employees didn't notice noticed that he hadn't closed the fence door. The bear came through it to visit the tiger, and friendship was born. Now they're not only allowed to see each other from time to time, they're even settled next to each other. Do you think this is the right decision made by park workers? Write in the comments. The best father for ducklings. What do you think? Who will win the best candidate for this title? A duck, perhaps? Or a human? I don't know. After watching this clip, I'm starting to think that there's no one better than a dog. We understand that the four-legged friends, and especially Labradors, are incredibly sensitive creatures, which are ready to rush into fire and water for their friend or owner. And now imagine what they're capable of in relation to small and cute ducks that have become family for them. In 2018, the world learned of a dog named Fred, who took custody of 9 orphan ducklings after their mother went missing. Those chicks had already grown up and fled the nest, but the Labrador found new babies left unattended and without their mother's care. The incredible dog decided to raise these poor orphans. What do you think of this sweet dog's behavior? I think it's very cool and unusual. That's all, guys. Which encounter in the animal world surprised you the most? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and see you later.